There is something remarkable about a good woman. Her love is gentle, her patience endless, and her loyalty unshakable. She pours her soul into the people she cares for, often giving more than she takes. But when her heart is wounded, when the one she trusted most leaves scars too deep to ignore, something extraordinary happens. Her story does not end in pain. It begins with transformation. When a good woman is hurt, the first thing that fades is her light, not the light she carries within her, for that can never truly die, but the way she chooses to share it with the world. She has always been the kind of soul who pours herself into others, who nurtures, who gives without holding back. Her love is not measured in words alone, but in actions, in details, in quiet sacrifices that often go unseen. She becomes the warmth in a cold room, the calm in chaos, the steady presence that gives life a sense of meaning. But when her heart is wounded too deeply, she cannot keep shining in the same way. Her energy no longer flows outward, it turns inward. The laughter that once filled her conversations grows quieter. The little gestures of care, the extra effort she used to put into making others feel loved, begin to vanish. Not because she no longer knows how to love, but because she refuses to keep giving where her love has been taken for granted. Her silence is not emptiness, it is a language in itself. A quiet withdrawal that speaks louder than words ever could. She no longer argues, no longer pleads, no longer explains her worth. She simply closes the door to parts of herself that were once wide open. Her nurturing presence, once so consistent, begins to fade like a candle burning low, reminding those who knew her glow that it was never promised, never guaranteed. It was always a gift, and gifts can be taken back. In that silence, she protects her spirit. She learns that not everyone deserves the softness of her touch or the depth of her understanding. She sees clearly that pouring into the wrong vessel only leaves her empty, and she is too valuable to be drained. The world around her may not understand at first. Some may mistake her silence for weakness or coldness, but in truth it is strength. It is the strength to no longer waste words on ears that do not listen. It is the strength to walk away from places where her heart is not cherished. Her withdrawal is not punishment, but self-preservation. She does not turn cold because she hates. She turns quiet because she finally loves herself enough to stop bleeding for others. Those who once relied on her endless patience feel the weight of her absence. They remember the way her presence made everything lighter, easier, more beautiful. And when it is no longer there, the silence becomes deafening. For a good woman never truly disappears, but she does retreat into herself. She chooses to protect her light until she finds a place worthy of its glow. And in that withdrawal, she teaches the world the most unforgettable lesson, that losing her is not like losing anyone else. Because when she goes quiet, when her light is no longer shared, everything that once felt alive suddenly feels empty. Pain has a way of breaking illusions, of shattering the walls we build around the truth. For a good woman, the pain of being hurt becomes more than just an ache in her heart. It becomes the spark of awakening. At first, it feels like a storm she cannot escape, a heaviness pressing against her chest, nights spent replaying moments, asking questions that have no answers. But in that storm, something begins to stir. The pain does not destroy her. It strips away the illusions she once clung to. It forces her to look inward, to meet herself in ways she has long forgotten. She begins to notice the parts of herself she ignored while giving so much to others. The quiet dreams she set aside, the needs she buried beneath her constant giving, the strength she always carried but never fully embraced. All of it starts to come alive. Her pain pushes her into a mirror she cannot turn away from, and in that reflection she sees not weakness, but resilience. She sees that the very heart that was broken is the same heart that kept beating through the hurt, refusing to stop. In the silence of her solitude, she rediscovers the pieces of her soul that were never truly lost, only hidden. She remembers the girl who once had dreams of her own, before she was consumed by trying to keep others happy. She remembers the fire she once carried, the ambitions she tucked away, the laughter that belonged to her alone. Slowly, She gathers those pieces back into her arms, realizing that she was never as fragile as she thought. The pain becomes her teacher. It tells her that love is not selfish, that boundaries are not cruelty, that her worth does not decrease because someone else failed to see it. It whispers truths that she had forgotten. That she is enough as she is, that her heart is not something to be begged for, that her presence is not something to be earned by others, but something she chooses to give. Every tear becomes a lesson, every sleepless night a chapter of growth. She starts to build a relationship with herself, learning to enjoy her own company, to honor her needs, to protect her peace. What once felt like loss begins to feel like freedom because in the absence of what hurt her, she makes space for what will heal her. Her transformation is not loud, it is quiet and steady, like the sunrise after the darkest night. The pain that once weighed her down becomes the very foundation of her strength. She carries her scars not with shame, but with pride, for they remind her of the journey that led her back to herself. And in that self-discovery, she realizes the most powerful truth of all: no one can truly break her, because everything she needs has always been within her. Her pain did not end her story. It revealed who she was always meant to be. There comes a moment when a good woman realizes that she cannot keep fighting battles that were never hers to begin with. For so long, she has carried the weight of keeping things together, giving second chances, holding on when everything inside her whispered to let go. Her heart has always leaned toward fixing, toward believing that if she just loved harder, if she just gave a little more, things might change. But when the hurt cuts deep enough, when the truth finally outweighs the hope, something shifts within her. She stops fighting for someone else and begins fighting for herself. It is not an easy transition. Her nature resists it at first, because giving is what she knows best. Letting go feels foreign, like stepping into an unfamiliar world. But pain has a way of teaching lessons that nothing else can. It teaches her that no matter how much she pours out, love cannot thrive where it is not watered in return. It teaches her that clinging to what breaks her only keeps her from reaching what will heal her. So she makes a choice, quiet, powerful, life-changing. She decides to stop chasing love that doesn't honor her and start building a life that does. She takes all the energy she once used to hold together what was falling apart, and she pours it back into herself. The fight no longer belongs to proving her worth to others, it belongs to proving her worth to herself. She begins to invest in her own dreams, her own healing, her own growth. The time she once spent mending cracks in someone else's world becomes time she now spends strengthening the foundation of her own. The words she once used to defend her love become words she whispers to herself in kindness, reminding her that she deserves more, that she deserves peace. It is in this shift that her strength becomes undeniable. For walking away from what she thought she could never live without takes more courage than holding on ever did. Choosing herself is not an act of selfishness. It is the purest act of survival, the deepest act of love. She no longer wastes her fight on what drains her. She saves it for what lifts her, for the goals she had forgotten, for the future she is now building. And as she learns to fight for herself, she discovers that the world looks different. She walks with a new kind of confidence, one born not from needing to be loved, but from knowing she already is. By the only person who truly matters, herself, the struggle she endured becomes the very fuel that drives her forward. And the strength she now carries cannot be taken away. She no longer fears losing anyone because she has finally found herself. And once a good woman learns to fight for her own soul, nothing in this world can ever silence her again. There is a certain weight to absence that no presence can ever replicate. When a good woman withdraws, when her love and energy are no longer given so freely, the world around her feels the difference. For so long, her presence was the unspoken comfort, the invisible thread holding everything together. She was the one who remembered the little details, who brought warmth into the room, who gave reassurance in silence and support without needing to be asked. Her presence was never loud, but it was constant, steady, and irreplaceable. And when it is gone, the emptiness it leaves behind speaks louder than any words could. Her absence is not just the loss of companionship, it is the loss of a certain kind of peace that only she could create. The gestures once overlooked suddenly become memories replayed with longing. The laughter once taken for granted now echoes in the quiet, reminding of what it meant to have her near. The comfort of knowing she would always be there turns into the ache of realizing she is not. That is the power of a good woman's absence. It awakens a recognition that her presence was never ordinary, it was a rare gift. She does not leave in anger, nor does she vanish to cause pain. She simply chooses to no longer offer herself where her love is not valued. Her absence is her final act of love, not toward others, but toward herself. And it is in that act that the lessons are taught. For those who once believed she would always stay, the silence she leaves behind becomes a mirror. It reflects the truth of how much she mattered, how much she gave, and how easily it was all dismissed until it was too late. Regret grows in the spaces she once filled. Every message she no longer sends, every smile she no longer shares, every moment she no longer saves becomes a reminder of the light that is missing. Where once there was certainty, now there is doubt. Where once there was comfort, now there is longing. It is in her absence that the value of her presence becomes undeniable. But while others sit with that realization, she sits with freedom. She learns that her worth was never defined by how much she gave to those who did not appreciate her. Her absence is not only a lesson to others, but also a declaration to herself she deserves more, and she will not settle for less. And so her withdrawal creates two truths at once: the pain of loss for those who failed to treasure her, and the peace of liberation for herself. For nothing speaks louder than the silence of a good woman who once gave everything. It is in that silence that the world learns what it means to take for granted a love that will never be found again in the same way. Scars tell stories that words often cannot. For a good woman, every wound becomes more than just a mark of pain. It becomes a chapter of growth, a reminder of battles endured and lessons learned. When her heart is broken, when her trust is betrayed, she is not left weaker. On the contrary, she rises from the ashes of what once hurt her, carrying within her a strength that cannot be shaken. What was meant to break her only refines her, shaping her into someone wiser, more resilient, and untouchable in ways she never imagined before. At first, she may have felt shattered, pieces of herself scattered across the floor of her past. But slowly, she gathers those pieces, not to put herself back the way she was, but to rebuild into something greater. She learns that her scars do not take away from her beauty, they add to it. They are proof that she has lived, that she has survived, that she has faced storms and come out standing taller. Each scar becomes a badge of honor, a quiet strength she carries with her wherever she goes. Through the hurt, her vision sharpens. She no longer sees through rose-colored lenses, she sees through truth. She learns to read people more deeply, to sense intentions before words are spoken, to recognize the difference between promises and actions. Wisdom flows into her spirit, not in bitterness, but in clarity. She no longer confuses love with sacrifice or loyalty with suffering. She understands now that true love does not wound, that true connection does not break her down but builds her up. Her strength is not loud or aggressive, it is quiet and unshakable. It lives in the way she carries herself, in the calmness of her spirit, in the confidence that radiates from knowing she has already endured the worst and still stands tall. Where once she may have been easily shaken by the opinions of others, now she stands rooted in her truth. She knows who she is, and no one can take that away from her. The scars she carries make her untouchable, not because she is closed off, but because she has built boundaries that protect her. She knows what she deserves, and she will never again accept less. She does not harden her heart, but she strengthens it, ensuring that it beats for what is real, for what is worthy, for what is true. And so she becomes a woman transformed, stronger than before, wiser than ever, and untouchable in the most powerful way. Not untouchable because she cannot be loved, but untouchable because she will never again allow herself to be broken by anything less than love that is pure and true. Her scars are not signs of weakness. They are the crown she wears proudly, proof that she has survived and that she is unstoppable. Life has a way of balancing itself, of returning to those who have suffered the gifts they once thought were lost. For a good woman who has endured the weight of betrayal, who has carried scars and walked through the fire of heartbreak, there comes a season of restoration. It does not arrive all at once, nor does it always come in the way she expects. But slowly, life begins to reward her. Where there was once chaos, she begins to find peace. Where there was once emptiness, she begins to taste freedom. And where there was once pain, she discovers love that feels nothing like the hurt she once knew. Peace comes first like a gentle whisper after years of noise. It settles into her heart in the quiet moments, mornings where she no longer wakes with heaviness, nights where her mind finally rests without replaying what went wrong. She feels it in the way her chest loosens, in the way her laughter returns without effort. Peace is not the absence of pain, but the presence of acceptance. She no longer needs answers to the questions that once haunted her. She no longer searches for closure from the ones who broke her. She realizes the closure was always in her own hands. In the choice to release what no longer belongs to her, that release opens the door to a stillness she had forgotten she could feel. Then comes freedom. Freedom is not just walking away from what hurt her. It is stepping fully into herself. It is wearing her strength like a second skin, making decisions without fear, and embracing the life she wants without apology. She feels freedom in the way she no longer seeks validation, in the way she trusts her own voice, in the way she builds a world that feels safe, strong, and authentically hers. She no longer lives for others. She lives for herself, and in doing so, she finds a joy deeper than any fleeting approval. And finally, love. Not the kind she once clung to, not the kind that demanded her sacrifice without giving in return. This love is different. It is patient, it is kind, it is steady. Sometimes it comes from others, from a partner who sees her worth clearly, from friendships that nourish her, from connections that uplift instead of drain. But most importantly, it comes from within. She learns to love herself in ways she never had before, to honor her boundaries, to cherish her body, to respect her spirit. This self-love becomes the foundation upon which all other love must stand. Life rewards her because she has grown into someone who will never again settle for less than what she deserves. Peace becomes her resting place, freedom becomes her path, and love, true, unwavering love, becomes her home. And in that home, she realizes that everything she once thought she lost was never truly gone. It was waiting patiently for her to become the woman who could finally receive it. In the end, the journey of a good woman is never defined by the hurt she endures, but by the strength she discovers because of it. What was once meant to break her becomes the very force that builds her. She learns to retreat when her light is unappreciated. She transforms her pain into self-discovery. She stops fighting for others and starts fighting for herself. She teaches the world the cost of her absence. She rises stronger and wiser from her scars, and she embraces the peace, freedom, and love that were always waiting for her. Her story is not one of defeat, but of rebirth. She proves that no matter how deeply she is wounded, her spirit cannot be destroyed. Instead, it grows brighter, sharper, more powerful than ever before. And as she walks forward, she carries not the weight of what hurt her, but the crown of the woman she has become. For when a good woman is hurt, she does not stay broken. She transforms, she evolves, and she creates a life so full of strength, love, and light that nothing can ever dim her again.